criticisms can sometimes be both a blessing and a curse. And a criticism can push a project to be better, or it can completely destroy a project. And I feel sometimes criticism can also lead to a completely different outcome than we expected. And there's a lot of people who I would admire, specifically just to listen to them and understand their points of views and their approaches to different things. And one of those people that I do trust in a way to their sort of vision is Quentin Tarantino. Now, Quentin Tarantino is a fantastic director. He has directed fantastic movies that have gone on to be extremely successful and have pushed boundaries in Hollywood. And when I heard him talk about Joker, Folie, Deux, he said that this was the biggest FU to Hollywood that there is. And that this movie was great in every sort of way. And to me, prior to all of that, I had been hearing the criticisms going in the opposite direction, saying that Joker, Folie, Deux was a pretty bad movie, that it had no central character, development. It's a big nothing burger, or it's just not worth the watch. And I was kind of swayed by the majority of those people into not going to see this movie in theaters. So I said, you know what, I'm gonna wait to see it on digital. And I have to say, I feel a little bad about myself for not going to see this movie in theaters, because after seeing it, I think this movie deserves a lot more attention than it initially got. So before I go any further, I have to give you guys the always important warning that we are going to discuss spoilers in this discussion. And I have to say it because there's a lot of little things that happen across this movie that really piqued my interest. I would say that I have more positives to say about this movie than negatives, but rest assured, I have a few nitpicks here and there that I do have to air out with you guys. But nonetheless, if you've already watched Joker, then you're already at the right place. But if you haven't watched it, go over, watch the movie, then come back and let's continue this discussion. Okay? Have I gotten everything cleared? All right, let's go. So I just finished watching Joker, Folie, Deux, and I would have to say I'm a bit of a stickler when it comes to cinematography. And this movie has great cinematography. The approach that they have toward each scene is magnificent. The moments that you see, Harley and Joker interacting with one another, those are great. I have to give props to none other than Lady Gaga herself for being an absolutely great Harley Quinn. It's hard to put into words how well I think she did. I think she did fantastic. I think this was the role that she was meant to kind of play at some point, even though that it didn't stretch out as much. This is a much more dramatic version of Harley Quinn. I wish I had seen a more mind-blowing, expanded version of Harley Quinn, even though we do see those little moments here and there spread throughout the movie. But nonetheless, I think she did a fantastic job in this movie. And I have to also give props to Joaquin Phoenix as well. He is another fantastic actor who, again, we have to remember, Joaquin Phoenix won the Oscar for this role. He won the Oscar, and having him back playing this character is a natural thing to happen. I think a lot of people would question it, would say, why are they doing this again? I think it's very easy to understand why. He is that good of an actor, and he won righteously. I mean, this is a role that's very hard to play. It's not about being this insane clown or being this like really wild person or trying to play this thing as like a villain or anything, because he doesn't play it as a villain. He plays it as someone who's justifying every move he makes. So it's important to have that play out as it does, and Joaquin Phoenix does another brilliant job doing just that. And something that people are just gonna really get in there and talk about are the musical numbers in this movie. Now, yes, this movie literally dives head first into every single moment of this movie, leading to a musical number in a way. And I think that it's great that all these musical numbers are in here, and it kind of gives you a sense of what goes on in Joker's brain, because most of the time we're not really in his head. We're kind of seeing him from the exterior, seeing him as the villain, even though the movie tries to make us sympathize with him, but we do see him as that villain for doing all these crazy things. So in a way, it does that really well. It takes those musical numbers and attaches to Joker really well. I do think that there was a little too much music. You know, the musical numbers in this movie were a little too much, I would say. I would say that they could have toned it down just a slight smidgen. I'm not going to say that it's a terrible thing that they had all these musical numbers, but I think that they could have toned it down. Maybe cut maybe a song here or there in this movie, because I think I would have wanted to dig even deeper into Joker and Harley and that relationship, and you know the consequences of that relationship. And I think that it's a very unique approach to Joker in this case, not from the first movie, but in this case scenario is a unique approach to it, because we're not seeing Joker as, oh, he's just some ordinary guy. No, he is literally living in the aftermath of everything that he did prior to this movie, which was all happening in the first movie. So we're seeing the aftermath of all that. So I think that they approached it really well by giving us a sense of what goes on in his head in the first movie, but they also did that and expanded on that in this movie. A lot of people are going to talk about this movie's length. I think a lot of people will say that this movie's a little too long. I didn't feel it as that long, to be very honest with you. I think that, could you shave off a few minutes here and there of the movie? Sure. But at the same time, I would have added maybe another 15 minutes to this movie, which is wild. This movie's like 2 hours and 15 minutes long or something like that. Most people are going to say that's too long. I get it. I get why people would say that, because it may be a little longer than usual. But I can't say that it completely destroys my faith in this movie due to it being 2 hours and 15 minutes. You could have added another 15 minutes in there, but I would have utilized those 15 minutes extra a little bit differently, maybe setting up for what could be the next part of this movie. And that, in and of itself, is probably the one thing I would say is the highlight for me of this movie. So you're probably saying to yourself, what are you talking about? Well, here's the thing. Most people would say, oh, this is just another Joker movie. It kind of sucked because it had a bunch of musical numbers and it didn't have enough, spark with a lot of people because they wanted to have that same feel from the first movie in this movie. I get that. I get why you would want that in this movie. But I feel like this movie ends better than the first movie, which is kind of wild to think about. A lot of people would say otherwise, would say that the ending of the first movie is better than the second movie. I feel like this movie ends better than the first movie, and I'll explain to you why. Even though that the first movie ended on shock value, this one also ends on shock value. but it ends with a concept rather than an idea, which is kind of weird to say that, like, oh, idea and concept. The first movie ends with the idea of Joker. So what is the idea of Joker? He's like this rebellious guy. He doesn't, live by the rules. He's very, I wouldn't say condescending, but he is, psychotic in a way. And the psychotic mind of his gets him in trouble in a lot of things. And ultimately, his mindset keeps him from, like, people seeing all of his past. You know what I'm saying? Like, all the bad things he has done, in a way, has been due to how the world treated him. So the world doesn't see that part. They just see, oh, this guy's crazy, but the world is the one who created this monster. So that alone is an idea, or we can also call it a concept. I mean, I don't care. But that idea of Joker is what the first movie ends on. The concept that this movie, injects into us is possibly one of the most smart concepts I have seen from a superhero movie in a while. And I would say, like, this is probably one of those cases where I'm still puzzled by it, but at the same time, it's a genius move. And that is that this Joker that we see is the first Joker. And by that I mean, he dies at the hand of somebody else who admires him in a way. And that, in and of itself, is already a bigger concept. And I think that due to the fact that he has this gigantic following, it kind of leads into the idea that we are seeing not the rise of Joker, of, say, Joaquin, let's just say what it is, Arthur Fleck. We're not seeing the rise of Arthur Fleck. We're seeing the rise of the quote-unquote idea of Joker that I mentioned before. Because now we're seeing the next Joker take his place. We kind of see this guy throughout the entire movie. We're watching the movie, and sometimes the camera cuts to this one guy, and it cuts to him again, and it cuts to him again, and we don't really understand why they're cutting to this guy until the very end of the movie. And that is because we're seeing the rise of the new Joker happen right in front of us. We're seeing all these trials, we're seeing the mind of, this crazy person who we as the audience understand why he has become this crazy person, but we see the rise of this crazy person, and at the end of the day, we're seeing the consequences hit him back. He loses Harley, he loses, his sort of like faith in his relationship. So ultimately that kind of breaks him down. So when he dies in the end, it gives way to the new Joker, because this guy has killed Arthur Fleck, who is the current Joker, and in that case becomes the new Joker. And to me, that is a mind-blowing concept, because you guys, like I do, I watch Marvel movies, DC movies, and sometimes concepts come up that we never stop to think about, but they could very well be, game-changing. And in this case, it is a game-changing concept, because imagine if, for example, we are watching, Batman, for example, and ultimately we see a new Batman come into play. Like, a Batman passes on the cape and cowl to somebody else, and that person becomes the new Batman. I mean, imagine if that was the concept. Or Iron Man, like Tony Stark takes his suits and hands it down to somebody else, and that new person becomes Iron Man. Or, we've kind of seen this concept in a way with Hawkeye. We've kind of seen this concept as well with maybe Thor. We've seen these concepts sort of before, but never on the side of the villain. And that is really interesting to see this sort of like handed down version of, the core concept, the core idea of Joker being transferred over to somebody else, and that person becoming the new Joker is brilliant. And to me, that alone would get me to watch a third movie. Like, imagine this. The third movie in this Todd Phillips, version of the DC universe. Imagine if the next movie is us seeing the repercussions of this new Joker, who is going to take on an even more insane approach to this idea. Because, after all, Arthur Fleck isn't insane by nature. He's insane due to the fact that he was treated and conformed in a way that caused him to become that. So it's mind-blowing to me that they use this concept in this movie. I could go on for hours with somebody just talking about this one concept, but I think that is what makes this entire movie a great movie. And honestly, if Todd Phillips decides to make a sequel to this movie, I will have to say that I will not listen to the naysayers no more, because I think that this movie really does take incredible odds. It pushes boundaries. It does exactly what Quentin Tarantino mentioned. It is a big FU to whatever concept people have of a super villain movie, and pushes it all out of the way and says, all right, I'd like to give it, I'd like to give these people their all. And I mean, we heard stories already about the fact that, Lady Gaga and Joaquin Phoenix really didn't care about the script as much, and they kind of just made it their own. And a lot of people said, oh, this is bad because there's no direction, there's no way this movie's going to be good enough. And in a way, it did become great due to that very fact. And to me, that is a positive. And I do have to say, I did mention it a little bit earlier, but I do have to reiterate, the musical numbers in this movie are pretty great, and I did not expect Joaquin Phoenix to be that good a singer. I'm just going to put that out there. Joaquin Phoenix is a pretty damn good singer. In this movie, he has proven that. And obviously Lady Gaga, experienced and always incredible with her voice. I really did enjoy the versions of popular music that they played in this movie. The jazz musical numbers were fantastic. Cinematography, like I've already said, but even how they wore their clothes were fantastic. And the acting, again, fantastic. Joaquin Phoenix, again, I don't think he has to deserve a second Oscar, but if they want to nominate him for a second Oscar, I would say go for it. And Lady Gaga, as well, deserves a nomination as a supporting actress for this movie, because I think she did a great job. So, acting was on point too. Like I said, not a lot of negatives, but they are in there. But that, like I always say, is my opinion. It's my views, my way of thinking, and I want to know what you guys think. What do you guys think? Do you think that the Joker, Folie was good? Do you think it was bad? Do you think it's a worthy successor to the first movie? Do you wish to see a sequel in the future? Like I do. I would like to see a sequel, a continuation, and see where this new Joker takes us. And honestly, do you think it deserved all the hate that it got? The bad reviews, the, name calling, the saying that this movie is bad, whatever it is. Do you think that this movie deserved the negativity? Let me know down in the comments below. And while you're down there, hit the subscribe button and hit the bell to be notified when new videos go live on this channel. And thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next video.
Scrolling through YouTube, same old routine, then bam, movie savant, what a scene. Trivia bombshells dropping knowledge like rain. Forget the dishes, gotta watch it again. Movie buffs unite, savants to place. Subscribe and hit the bell, don't leave a trace. Next level knowledge keeps you in the loop. Savant's got the scoop, ain't nothing to recoup.